What is going on, folks? I am Goat. Welcome back to Warframe. Hi. So we have 5 new Incarnons to talk about. We've got the Dera, we've got the Cestra, we have the Cerberus, we have the Sicarus or whatever, and then we have the Okina or the Okina Prime. Obviously, they're Prime variants of the other weapons included. Truthfully, the Dera is one that I thought was going to be in the list a long time ago. At least in the last round of the second Incarnon Genesis adapter releases, and I'm glad to see it. A little intrigued by it, and I do have a couple of builds for it. Because there's a couple of ways you can go about this gun and find success. One seems a little bit more punctual than the other, and especially if you're going into higher level content, the present build that's about to be shown is probably going to be the more punctual one. But again, if you're going to higher level content, this may not be the gun. Something like Cerberus is a little better than this. And obviously, things like, you know, the Strun and the fucking Latron and the Miter and the Torrid, those are just far more powerful than pretty much all these. But I don't know that there's a bad one in here. There's some interesting quirks, but I don't know that there's a bad one. So we're going to go over the Dera first. So, yeah, evolutions. So basically this thing, it just fires beams of magnetic damage on top of your build. So it's a much slower fire rate, but it is what it is. High power beams and gain magnetic damage. So it's just adding a stat. So something like a Savvy mod can be a little advantageous to the build, somewhat. There's that. So Evolution 2, I've gone with the increased base fire rate base damage by +4, but on the status effect, plus 5% fire rate for 5 seconds, it stacks up to 6 fucking times. When I tell you that this is actually beneficial, I am not fucking kidding. Because the Incarnon mode fire is very slow. Projectile speed, because yes. And then Evolution 4 is crit damage, crit chance. Just seems to be the best. Now, there is another option on Evo 4, and it is this. This is a little interesting because it does work. I've tested it out. It does actually work and put some stink on it, but on the Incarnon side, it seems to be a little lacking than just overall raw crit. So, and it's kind of hard to turn down what the numbers end up looking like. Just saying. So, this is where we're at. The build. No Rivens. So this is build number 2. This is a little bit more punchy. This is a viral heat build based on primary merciless, using rifle elementalist because we really dig punch through. Galvanized aptitude because again we're adding more status types into other than what the weapon already offers to begin with, because that magnetic status just builds into that. The rest of it is pretty straightforward. Now, does that mean that you're stuck running 60/60s? No, you can actually do more raw damage. Tried it out. It works. But this works. Okay, because the Incarnon side of this weapon is rather punchy. It's kind of opposite-sided as far as the front side of this gun. So this is build number 1. Viral heat, more into status damage punch through, and just generally get fucked. And again, do take into account that these are, you know, level 225 heavy gunners. If I could hit him in her fucking head, that'd be helpful, wouldn't it? So, very slow fire, very chunky. As we start applying status effects, this does speed up just a tad. Obviously, as Merciless builds up, we start doing more damage anyway, so it's good fucking time. I mean, it's kind of a methodical drum beat, isn't it? Just don't. I mean, look, they just don't like it. And yes, I'm shooting them in the fucking face. So doing something like, excuse me, doing something like primary deadhead instead, not a bad thing. You do lose the reload speed, but you do gain minus recoil and a headshot multiplier, and shooting them in the face always works pretty damn good anyway. So build number 2, a little bit different. We're going for fire rate and punch through here. Damn the rifle elementalist on the status damage. Now this is going to come out being a little bit less punctual, but this is also a blast toxin build. So we're going to be doing blast toxin magnetic with a similar build. Not the same, similar, because we've taken Elementalist off, but we're now getting a 2.2 punch through and an increased fire rate instead of base status damage. This is also functional. Especially from a casual player standpoint, this absolutely fucking wrecks normal Steel Path missions. As you can tell, fire's a little faster. The only downside is that these higher armored fuckheads does take a little bit more to put some stank on them. Believe me when I tell you, this is a very casual build, okay? This is not meant to be like, oh, look how OP this is against these higher level enemies. This is just to show that, hey, this actually does kill them. Like here. I mean, like 3 fucking shots. I'm just kind of holding trigger and going ham. Like, it's punchy. It's kind of deceiving when you just sit there and hold the trigger and just let the statuses stack up. If you actually kind of individually fire it, it actually shows the true damage that it's doing. But that's the Dera. Now, the Cestra is, in my opinion, probably the weakest of the bunch. And that's really kind of saying something. So the Cestra basically it's you know, basically as long as you don't pull off the trigger, you're going to increase your critical chance. That's just what it is. So I've gone with this because unless you're doing shield gating or low armor builds, doing the other option for Evolution 2 is, I've always found this one to be a little problematic. It's like a frame like Nezha, for example, or a frame like, you know, Ureli even, or something like that, you know, or Ember, or, you know, Mirage. Frames that have shields breaking, great weapon for them, because, I mean, a ×3 critical damage is pretty damn fucking solid. But frames that want their shields up, you know, like this, horrible option for Hildryn. But then again, this is a horrible option for Hildryn either, so basically this gun just doesn't belong with Hildryn. Protea, also. But I tend to run more, you know, health tanking, armor, you know, armor base, shields breaking, shit like that. You know, so it's like they either have no fucking armor, they either have a bunch of armor or no goddamn armor and ability survival. So I just chose this because if I'm running it on a higher armor frame, I get a really good chunky piece of multi-shot too with it. So that's that. So I would normally choose projectile speed. Okay, because the Cestra's projectile is very fucking slow. But this thing also kicks like a goddamn mule. So, hence why I went with Slayer's Nerve on this one. And then the last one. Now, this one is interesting because you can go with a base critical chance increase of 18%. Nothing wrong with that. You can do the critical multiplier. I mean, a 2x multiplier is no punk of a choice. But base status chance by 30% of critical chance up to 40%, or increase the base status chance by 30%. I wish this thing just didn't hover around like that. Increase base status chance by 30% of current critical chance up to 40%. This just works. Okay, it just fucking works. And basically, this is incentivizing to basically just hip fire like a dumbass and just have a good old fucking time doing it, right? And charges very fucking fast. So, we basically just open fucking fire, and we don't let off the damn trigger. Because this thing has a lot of goddamn bullets to spare. And yes, I will show you the build in just a moment. It's kind of rude. And I say this being the weakest of them. Because it incentivizes a really reckless fucking firing style. This is the build. Yes, I have a Riven. It's multi-shot status chance and punch through with a minus to puncture. Okay, it's actually not as OP as it looks. Because on the front side, the crit is horrible. On the back side, though, this is where the status chance actually comes into play and really starts proccing damage on enemies on top of having crit. So this works really, really, really well. Now, you can forego the whole accuracy thing, go for projectile speed, and then reduce recoil in this sense. You know, but It's no need. There's an option. And obviously it charges really ridiculously quick. And here we come into probably at least top 4, top 5 Incarnon Genesis melee. I actually click on the right shit here. So, this thing throws ice daggers on kills. But they seek out enemies. That's the good shit. Now, I've tried a couple of builds, and I'm going to show you the couple of builds. I've got the original build that I went with, which works. It works fine against base steel path. But then I went with something that I wasn't really expecting to do because it has a very funny interaction. And I went with an electric melee influence build. It was one of those weird ass tinker things, you know, like you'll see in an upcoming video with Varuna. You know, you guys will see that. It's a thing. So, but my tinker process is weird sometimes, okay? I just kind of go, I wonder if this will work. So, yeah, basically when you kill something, you know, it does good stuff. So your options here are increase base damage by +20. On a critical hit, you can do +6% damage for 10 seconds, stacks up to 5 times. So you get basically an additional 30% damage. There's nothing wrong with that. This is also something that I tested that works very fucking good. Either one is really a good choice. This one, I initially went with this. Now, the hiccup behind this is that it doesn't pause the Incarnon timer. It only pauses the combo timer. Now, how that works is that basically, if you get it up to a ×12 and then stop killing, that's great, but the Incarnon timer will run out. So the moment you unholster this thing and start to use it, you basically have to heavy attack and kill all your combo anyway. So it's one of those, you could pull out and heavy attack, you know, a really annoying enemy, but you won't be doing it on the Incarnon side of the weapon unless you did it just before, let's say, an Acolyte spawns or something like that. So, movement speed is kind of whatever. I actually, because of the build, the secondary electric build that's really destructive as shit, because of the way that this works, movement speed isn't necessary, so I went with range. And I kind of double dipped range, and you'll see. The third one is pretty simple. Status chance by 12%, status duration by 25%. Now, you could do the, kind of conservative critical chance and status chance, which is fine. You could do the kind of conservative base critical chance, but these things are pretty, they got some stank on them to begin with, so going with just base critical chance isn't all that amazing, and at least this way you can proc some shit. You'll see. So the build, which I kind of had to, this is the original build, okay? So melee duplicate, no, nothing in the Axillus, same as the other build. I'm going to turn my fan on, by the way, because I'm getting, I don't even know why Virulent Scourge is not ranked up all the way. I'm going to fix that right now. I apparently forgot to do it. There we go. So, I went on the secondary build trying to do the melee influence based off of the polarizations that I've done to this so far, and I've done 2. This build here works, okay? Works just fine. Works perfectly fine. No need to show this one, though, because this one's more broken, okay? I'm using 2 of the new galvanized mods, so this one is status damage on a melee kill, status chance increase. And it stacks up to a ×4. So it's a good time. Galvanized steel, critical chance, but you get increased critical damage for 20 seconds. It stacks up to 4 times. This is actually a pretty nasty little fucking combo, especially if you're doing something as ridiculous as fucking doing a pure electric, I'm gonna shock the world build. And on top of it, having these little ice daggers go flying out, they end up having a very, very fun little interaction. So, we're just gonna build this up. They enough tinkering goes around. And see, like, the best part, you see these little daggers flying around? Check it. They stay around and they go seek another enemy. They do cold and magnetic, though. So it's a good time. Those little daggers put in some fucking work, man. So these are solid as hell. Now forgive, that's going to bug the shit out of me, but I'm just going to leave them because we have ice daggers. Actually, no, I need to get rid of them because I need to... There we go. Where did my buddies go? There. I'll just leave one. So, yeah, that Okina build is really stupid. I kept dicking around with like the evolution for the movement speed, and then I was giving up movement speed, and the balance just didn't feel good. And I tried not using range for the evolution, and then I ended up double dipping into range, which ended up it hits a lot of shit, especially on the influence build, because it just wants to reach out and electrocute everything like chain lightning from D&D. So it's a fun time. The Okina, I probably honestly put the most testing into. As silly as that sounds, I put a shit ton of test time on the Okina, and oh my god, does it just destroy groups of enemies. It's a very good time. So on to the Cerberus, okay, or the Cerberus. I hear people pronounce it so many different fucking ways. So basically, this thing goes from a dual shot burst to a quadruple shot burst that gives blast damage. That's basically the change, okay? That's all it does. Is it goes from a burst times 2 to a burst times 4. That's it. Incarnon 2 is good. Okay, so in Incarnon Evo 2, you have this choice of doing consecutive weak point hits, so headshots, increase base damage by +5, stacks up to 3 times. So 15% base damage increase, so basically you double the increased base damage if you're getting headshots. Or you could just simply go with... on firing this thing, as long as I pull the fucking trigger, my multi-shot goes up. On top of getting the exact same base damage. That's kind of a no fucking brainer. This thing does kick pretty good, so I personally went with minus weapon recoil rather than doing something in the Axilis slot, but that's kind of up to you. You could just as easily do... yeah, I mean, you could easily do either one of these two, but all of these are... Like, this is the only one that affects the gun on the front side of the gun and the Incarnon transition, or transmutation. So, these two both only affect the gun, you know, on the front side before you do the transmutation. So, it's kind of meh. This one is the most beneficial in my personal opinion. And then the last one, like, I tested with this one, which is not bad. It's pretty good, especially with the blast damage. You know, 16%, it's pretty solid. This one, just not a fan. And then basically just critical chance and status chance. And yes, I do have a Riven for this, and it's nothing OP because I know eventually I'll end up having to re-roll it because it's a no negative Riven, but it plays into the gun very fucking well. And I will tell you right now, if you're going to use anything else here, okay, you're going to use anything else here, personally, I would probably do, like, Rifle Elementalist. Get you some extra punch through, some extra status damage, because, good God, does this thing give some base status anyway. So, especially building off of 360-60s and aptitude. So if you use Elementalist, it's going to give you some pretty good punch. But I kind of like the punch through and the fire rate from Prime Shred, and then the Riven is just literally critical chance and status chance. So it's not even OP as shit. So this thing ends up being a viral... it ends up being a viral blast weapon. And it's pretty mean. It's a little slow to charge. Because it has so many fucking rounds. But, yeah, 200 fucking rounds. And yes, you could just as easily use Merciless on this. Personally, though, I find the minus recoil and the headshot bonus to be nice for this, but it's rude. Okay, it's very, very rude. And then we finally end out with what was a very, very bugged weapon when it first came out, and I only got to deal with it for one day before they fixed it, because I was out of town dealing with my brother's ashes. So I came back, and I was ranking the gun, and I was like, oh my god, and then they hot fixed it. So apparently there was like an entire week of people having a really good fucking time with this weapon. But the Sicarus, or the Sicarus, or whatever the fuck you want to call this thing. So basically it has ricocheting bullets. That's what it does. Okay, it's a burst fire weapon, as we've all come to know, and it was a pretty crap weapon. It used to be, anyway. It was okay. If you had a really, really OP, like God Roll Riven, it was actually pretty good. So, increase base damage by plus 40, times 0 critical chance on body shots, but a plus 150% critical chance on weak point hits. Weak points either being something Banshee highlights or headshots. Okay, or you could do this. Personally, I like shooting somebody in the face and getting a boosted fucking crit out of it anyway, so it's a good time. This one, it's kind of the sky's limit. You could get increased reload, which just helps with Incarnon transmutation. Base capacity magazine, if you're horrible at headshots, fine, so be it. But this is actually a helper because this thing just wants to go fucking burr. So the accuracy and the weapon recoil, personally, I find to be kind of beneficial. Now, on this one, you can do increased base critical chance by 14. You can do the more conservative route of 9%, 9% for both, or you can turn around and do this. Now, I've been testing both, okay? Personally, I like this one a little bit better. But just for the sake of argument, we'll do this. Okay, so the Sicaris, there she blows, right? Like, there she blows right there. So we're going to ditch the status buff, and we're going to just straight go to critical, and that's that. This is what I've been using, especially since it's kind of wanting you to hit weak points anyway. Deadhead is kind of a good time. Aside from that, you know, again, with it not being so status focused, you could kind of go a few different directions with not using galvanized shot. It's fine. It really doesn't care. This fucking gun really does not give a shit. Even nerfed. If I hit him in the fucking head, this works really good. How are you alive? If I would not aim at empty spots, I wouldn't have even, you know, fucking emptied the Incarnon mag. I was shooting at nothing. No, this thing is, it is a rude son of a bitch. But, yeah, that's what I got. That's what I got. These Incarnons are very good. The Dera is, as far as the rifles go, I think the Cerberus is the better. But the Dera is no punk. It's especially good against Corpus. So, like, if you have any troubles with Corpus, some do, some don't. But if you have any troubles with Corpus, and you have the option to get the Dera, you know, Incarnon, do it. You will never have a problem with Corpus again. You do a blast toxin magnetic burst on the Incarnon and they just die. The Cestra is the weaker, albeit it's actually really fucking powerful. And that's saying a lot, saying that it's weaker when it's doing massive amounts of red crits. But it's also basically, hey, charge your gun and do not let off the trigger. Because if you let off the trigger, then it resets the whole, you know, increased critical chance bullshit. The Okina is very powerful. Cerberus is very good. Sicaris is also even nerfed down very good. So, I do miss the fact of basically firing like fucking 3 bursts and then, you know, the entire fucking sim dies. But it is what it is. So, that's what I got for now. So, folks, I want to thank you very much for watching. As always, we'll catch you in the next one, alright?